Welcome to the Awakened Collective, where we explore the topics of love, spiritual consciousness, and our divine purpose on this planet. Join us as we uncover the truth that our thoughts shape our reality. Welcome to the Awakened Collective podcast. I'm Rick Gregory, and it's so good to be with you today. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, Daniel. And thank you to Audio Alchemy Productions and for all the help they are to me and the world in getting our messages out to everyone. Thanks for being here today. If you're probably not watching this live on Facebook, you're probably out chilling and grilling for Dad's Day. And that's okay, because you'll get to listen to it later or watch it later. I am wanting to remind you, as always, that you have never, not for a freaking nanosecond, been separated from your Creator. We have never been separated from one another. You are the divine extension of your Creator's love on this planet. Every week, I need to remind you of that. I need to remind myself of that every day, because it's when I start thinking that I'm separated from others that I get into some pretty lousy thinking, and that sends me in a spiral. I've got some special guests here today. One that you're familiar with, my son, Andrew. How fitting on Father's Day that I have my son here with us today. And a dear friend of his, and now a dear friend of mine, is with us also, Jeanmarie DeChiaro. Am I saying your last name right?
You are.
And
I'm shocked.
Jeanmarie is from New York. I love listening to her accent, and mine's kind of fading away from Massachusetts, and that's where I'm from. But I'm welcome to both of you. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I wanted to share with everyone before we get started. So I've just completed weekend 3 of 5 weekends of an emotional intelligence journey. It's a training workshop in Austin, Texas, with Ascension Leadership Academy. And it has been deeply transformative. And I want to talk about it a little bit. So we have our IQ, our intellect, and then we have our EQ, our emotional quotient. And that's what this is all about. It's about emotional intelligence. So how many folks do you know that you would say they are extremely intelligent, but not emotionally intelligent? So I want to ask Andrew and Jeanmarie, do you know anyone like that? And what does that look like?
I'll let Jeanmarie go first.
You'll let me go first. Okay. How many people do I know that are emotionally intelligent?
Well, not a number. So, I mean, what does it
Okay.
look like if someone they might have intellect, they might be extremely smart, but they're not emotionally intelligent? What does that even mean? What does it look like?
I mean, what it looks like to me is, they're really great at what they do. They're into their intellectual being. Sometimes it looks like always being right, being righteous in a way, and not really knowing how to navigate through their emotions, right? So it might not be in tune with who they be emotionally, able to communicate on that level and really kind of gun-ho in a direction for their own being.
So I was thinking too, like someone, you might have just signed a $1 million deal with someone, and then you're having a meltdown over the fact that your toast burned.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I remember when I was a child, not having the emotional intelligence and having those breakdowns and meltdowns and thinking, you're stuck in, even as an adult, right? You're stuck in traffic and you're having a meltdown because you want the car to go faster in front of you and you have no control, right? Instead of just being in your being and accepting what is and being in flow of that emotion.
What do you have, Andrew?
I mean, similar to what Jeanmarie said, I mean, IQ is a lot of doing. It's, I mean, you can have a lot of information in your head and you can be, right, intelligence and I mean, you could be a mechanic or engineer and be a mad scientist and know all this information. And like, that's great and all, but if I mean, emotional intelligence is really connecting the dots between like your head and your heart and your body. So emotional intelligence is deeper. It's not in the head. Emotional intelligence is fully in the body. It's not experienced in the head. Yes, the thought process of like, okay, I stubbed my toe or I burnt my toast, right? That situation, right? The thought process happens in the head, and then where we take it, our response or our reaction takes place in the body. It doesn't take place in the head. And the more and more that you bounce into emotional intelligence and you come up against, I mean, call them triggering moments, burning the toast or stubbing your toe, the more neutral that you become as a human being, where you can respond and not just react with the initial thought, right? It's like the emotional intelligence is like that first initial thought, and then emotional intelligence is like that second and third thought, and like playing out the tape in the process of like, yeah, I burnt my toast and it's a big traumatic thing, and I could choose to make my whole day go to shambles because of this toast, right? Or I can like choose a different story, a more empowering story about
Yeah.
burning toast, versus being like, F it, my whole day is ruined because I burnt my toast.
Yep.
Yeah. And knowing what's in your head, right? Like what we think creates that emotion in our body. So we get to have control over that, control over our thoughts, which again creates that emotion, which will create that breakdown and or saying, not so bad,
Yep.
that I burnt my toast. Big whoop.
It's funny. It's making me think because Glenn shares this a lot that, and we started some of this work in the rooms of recovery and getting sober. And he would be at a restaurant and they would not have Diet Coke. They only had Diet Pepsi. He would literally have a meltdown. And he shares about it today. Like, I actually believed it was an affront toward me, like that this was a personal vendetta that they did not have. It just seems crazy, but it's amazing how, like you said, what you were saying, Andrew, we have that thought and then that second thought, that feeling that comes with that thought and what we do with that. And I was thinking that in recovery, like we do an inventory. One of the steps is making a moral inventory. We look at our resentments, we look at our fears, we go back as far as we can, and we make a list of the names of people, the institutions and ideas and ideologies and all the things that we have had angst or have angst over, things that we harbor ill will toward or whatever it might be. And then we work through that stuff to uncover the root within ourselves. We see where perhaps we had been at fault, where we believed something that perhaps wasn't true, where we were selfish or self-centered or self-absorbed or ruled by, in my case, ruled by 100 different forms of fear. And we see that when we're doing our inventory to the best of our ability, but that work continues, for a lifetime. And I was just looking at ALA or Ascension Leadership Academy or this intelligence work, along those same lines, that we're looking within, where we're looking at behaviors that are rooted in wrong thinking. But so what if there was a way, and this is for everyone to think about, what if there was a way that we could see ourselves in a safe place over a very short period of time, without it having to unfold over a lifetime? I'm 63 years young, and there's a lot of crap in me that I want to still deal with, and I want to deal with it now. It's and this ALA platform with these containers, for me, it was like a quantum leap or a jump, to move me more rapidly forward into the abundant life that is my birthright. And it is your birthright to have an abundant life. It's what I deserve to have. It's what you deserve to have. And not only for me, but for the people and around me that I now will impact on a daily basis. So if I'm living an abundant life and seeing things, in that frame of mind and with those glasses, I'm going to affect the lives around me as well. A friend of mine sent me this quote this morning. It's a guy named John Claypool. It says, "When thinking of clarity, we need safe feedback from kind, wise people. from others. We cannot see all of ourselves by ourselves. We cannot see our own back. And you may remember this, Andrew, but our nephew, my nephew, your cousin, Nick, when he was little, he used to say, I know that place like the back of my head rather than hand. And, I would just chuckle. It's like, no, we can't see the back of our head. There's no way you could know it like that. So this workshop for me and others like it, and there are a lot of other workshops like this out there, invited me into an environment. And I say invited me because it was a choice. Every step of the way, it was a choice. I wasn't required to do anything. I was invited. And invited with other folks wanting to do this same self-examination work, seeing their fears, seeing their self-limiting beliefs, and it immersed me in these divinely, and I say that, I mean that, divinely inspired exercises that quickly allowed me to see and experience how I was responding to life. It helped me to see what was triggering me, how I was reacting, and how those reactions were keeping me from experiencing the abundance that my soul, and I know your soul too, longs for, from experiencing my birthright, the life that I deserve. So I don't know if that description was a good description, but I would like your input, Jeanmarie and Andrew, and for you to add to that.
Yeah.
I'll take this one first. So, uh, I mean, so I obviously I have also been in a lot of containers of transformation, AA, NA as well, and it's really not. I mean, I just want to be very clear with this too. It's not to say like one is better than the other and everything that you just said, Dad. So like as far as like ALA and the emotional intelligence container, like this container is just it's rapid speed. So we look at the lifespan of one's life, right? Point A, point B, B being death, right? And more times than not, we get to our deathbed, and that's where we have this great awakening of like, oh man, this is actually what life is about. And at that point, it's you know what I mean, it's a little late. That's the story for a lot of people. So this is just another form of transformation container. So AA, NA, 12-step fellowships, therapy, all of that is great. And if we're looking on the scheme of things and of our length of our lives, right? Emotional intelligence containers are just speeding up the transformation. It's not, it's just a faster because it's with repetition, right? Therapy over years, AA over years to get to that abundant life that you want. All of them can be utilized. There's so many different pathways that you can take. Emotional intelligence is just rapid fire. It's repetition after repetition after repetition after repetition. So hence quantum leaps. So like that point B, which for most people is their deathbed, and they're like, aha, I finally realized the meaning of life. You know what I mean? Emotional intelligence is really just compressing that timeline so that like you're essentially having that like end of life awakening transformation within 3 to 4 months. You're not waiting years of therapy. You're not waiting years of any other transformation container. This is happening in months. It is a rapid fire. So and it's a practice just like everything else. And that's why like I mean, I'll always say, and I know Dad, you share the same experience. Like this has been the most transformative, right? Because it's a 5-year timeline compressed into like 4 months. So you're able to like get into the wave of life, get into alignment, get into flow, get into your true authentic self just faster. And I don't know about you, but like urgency is a great thing when you're like, okay, if I look at my life, I'm 35 and say I have another 40 years to live, right? I want to get through as much as I can internally. You know what I mean? Throw out the things that are not working for me as fast as possible so that I have more time in that space of ease and flow for the rest of my life versus being like, let's take 10 years to work on this when I could be like, let's take a weekend to work on this, right? What sounds better? You want to take 10 years to work on something, or you want to take 4 months and like really go in, right? You can do the fluffy stuff and take 10 years, right? This container is not designed for everyone. Is it for everyone? 100%. But not every single person is ready or willing to do the work required to have these quantum leaps with this fast repetition over and over and over again.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. And for me, I mean, talk about abundance and living the life that you dreamt of. I've done possibly everything you can think of throughout the years. Like Andrew said, do you want a 10-year journey, or do you want to condense and like skyrocket to become your authentic self and break through those fears? And for me, it's like people wouldn't even think I needed something like this, because people, you know, you walk around being positive and shifting your mindset and doing certain things. And it was like, I've forgiven from my childhood. I've done all that work. And like, what else more could you do? Right? Or what else more could you need to stand or break through that fear? And I found with emotional intelligence and with this course, it's like he said, like rapid fire, so to say, but you're going within in such a way that it awakens things that you didn't even know underneath the core existed. So with all those other modalities, I found that I was only going so deep, but it wasn't getting to the core. And what I mean by getting to the core, like I realized through my process, like I didn't forgive my own self, right? But I was forgiving everybody around me. So why would I not be excelling or propelling in my life? And coming in through this program, it was just a huge breakthrough, to the point where I knew how to stand in my being and what I wanted to declare for myself, and having a world around you cheering you on to live and follow your soul in that way. Right. It's really, really looking at you and taking ownership for who you be and how you navigate through. Right. And not looking at everyone else, where I feel like in therapies or other things, it's like, again, not getting to the core, not really going subconsciously and saying, what do you want? And what are those things stopping you?
Yeah. You know, there's a saying that says we're the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with, and, you know, I've got some great people in my life, but if you the community of people that you surround yourself that are wanting to do this work, that you're surrounding yourself with, that you are mutually holding one another accountable, that you're wanting, you know, you're wanting all that this life has to give you, not only for yourself, but so that you can be of service to the world and to others, and to have that be in that environment, it is incredibly powerful. I mean, like you said, I thought I've been doing the work, and I have been doing some of the work. It's been slow, you know, a little bit, compared to what I've just recently experienced now.
Yeah.
But, you know, people might say, well, you know, because one of the things I found in ALA is that, you know, what I saw in myself was that I was being small, I was disengaged, disconnected. I was living in a people-pleasing place. And, you know, and you might say, well, wait a minute, look what you're doing. You got this podcast, you're getting your message. Well, that's what I see now is, you know, I was doing these things, but outside of this room, you know, I wasn't being these things, you know, and that's the switch that I see has taken place.
Yeah, 100% with that. You know, I found in my life, like I would be always afraid of conflict, or to hold someone high, so to say, right? People are so afraid of feedback, or to
Mm,
really tell the truth to someone and guide them in such a way. And through this process, I found like the more we speak up and the more we hold each other high, the more we flourish, the more we
yes.
blossom, the more connection we have, the more being we can be, the more, you know, everything happens for us. And it's just like dreams come alive and people connect, and it just becomes beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to say something that too. So like as far as like the community aspect of having individuals holding you high, like Jeanmarie just said, all around you, right? Because like emotional this work it's not for the faint of heart,
Mm.
right? And then I like go back to like if you look at all of the you know what I mean the God like people, Buddha, Jesus, right? All of that stuff, it's like they're doing this work, right? And it's not rational, it's not reasonable, right? And it's so unreasonable that people then look at to them, right? Like the story of Buddha didn't really want to be Buddha. They look at to these individuals like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing this work, right? And then they deity them, right? They turn them into gods, and they're these huge, these beautiful beings of enlightenment, and everyone's looking up to them. It's like, we're all capable of doing, right, God's work and transcending levels of consciousness. And we require that community of people around us because this is not reasonable. If this didn't come with a community of individuals holding you to this, it wouldn't necessarily work as well, right? Because we could jump up and then like we crash and burn if we're not being held and constantly being
Mhm.
held high and given feedback and love and support, because this isn't reasonable. This work isn't meant to be reasonable. It's literally shaking everything free that, and like we talked about, like realizing things weren't getting deep enough or like to the core. And like I agree with Jeanmarie and agree with you, Dad, like because like it's getting to like the ancestral root
Mm.
of things.
Mm.
It's not just the core of Andrew or Jeanmarie or
Right.
Dad. It's the core of like the whole lineage of
Hmm.
energy that is flowing through our bodies, and you know what I mean, hundreds of years ago, right? So that's the root of emotional intelligence work, that you literally clean out decades before
Mhm.
you and
Yes.
decades before and after you. So
Yeah.
like that's the core. And then in the meantime, in doing so, you create openness and connection, and you realize that you can like connect to individuals very deeply on the way that, like, if you take us back thousands of years ago where people used to just sit and commune with each other, and cell phones and technology didn't exist, and
Mm.
we just shared stories, and we just talked, and we just stared in each other's eyes and held hands and danced and all of this stuff. It was all connection. So
Mhm.
essentially, right, transcending levels of consciousness, emotional intelligence, all of the same thing, so that we can come back home to ourselves, which is being in the energy of love, being in the frequency of unconditional love everywhere we go, with ourselves and with people around us.
Yeah. That is so good. I mean, we tend to be, at least I know I do, tend to be very short-sighted. We don't realize we are carrying around our entire ancestry. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
the lineage is goes and goes and goes, you know, and we think it's just about us, and it really is not. And that's one of the other things I noticed is, you know, I had a buddy, you know, one of my buddies in ALA, um, and seeing her
Mm.
today in comparison to when she came in, she's unrecognizable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the joy, I mean, the happier, lighter, positive, it's like just lit up. There's like a reignited passion and boldness. It's that knowing that we have so much to give back, and that longing is in there to all has always been in there to wanna give back to the world, and that burning desire to do so.
Mm.
And folks having amazing creative ideas just coming out, you know, that's what's really cool. I mean, goals for their lives have come alive from, one of the people in my group. It's this like state of the art curriculum process and course for neurodivergent children,
Mm.
to motivational speaking, to helping people become financially independent through launching, real estate investments, and I mean, it's just people are so excited, and it's like you're in a room with a bunch of little kids, you know? It's
Yeah.
amazing. Was that your experience, or has that been your experience?
I mean, that's one of the greatest things I find with that is going back to our inner child. You know, what do we want to experience, and that we can be that child and have that much joy and just be, you know. It has opened up so much for me as well, and ancestral, right? Like Andrew had said, breaking the change within family to create that fun and dynamic, going back from when, you know, before all the conditioning happened. Even like within my family, I find like I'm a child, you know, I have three brothers, I'm the only girl, and it was tough growing up. And now they're coming to me and it's like, well, what are you doing? You know, how are you, the way I'm being? And like this Christmas, it was like all about fun and games, like game nights and stuff. And we've never done that, you know, and we're all adults. Like it's just, it was so fun. And through this process, watching everybody light up, because we're giving permission for people to live out their dreams. And it doesn't matter what they are or
Yes.
what you want to do, you can do it. You're allowed to do that. And, you know, forget about society, forget about the conditioning, you know, that our parents have given us, or grandparents, or, you know, generations before. it's from our core, and watching people come alive within that and knowing that they can do things, it's magical. It really, really is. It
Mhm.
just fuels me. It fuels my heart.
Yes. So true.
Yeah.
You know, in my 33 years in the nuclear industry, I have been to more self-improvement, self-development, leadership seminars than I can count. And this experience has been like no other, primarily because the goal wasn't just to go and to feel good,
Yeah.
and come home and then walk away and have that joy sucked out of you within a matter of minutes, and forgetting about it all, but coming in and doing the work, showing up, being accountable, um, and then implementing those ways of being like
Mm.
we talked about through teamwork and coaching and making them a habit. That's been one of the big missing pieces in all those other things that I've attended is turning these things into a habit,
Mm.
having that accountability.
100% implementation. You know, when the implementation of it, also when we stand in our being, right? It's not about what the other person is doing, right? And as we learn emotional intelligence and how to stand within our own selves, that when somebody else comes with a comment or does something, it doesn't take us out, right? Like we don't take offense to, okay, this person may not know better, or they're in a situation or whatever that is. Like I always said, like I want my dad to change. And my aunt would be like, well, once you change, things will change. We can't expect another person to keep changing where then we'll be okay within ourselves.
Yes.
Right. So it's so powerful within that as well.
Mhm.
And it creates such a different dynamic with the relationships around us and how we navigate the change, because it starts with us and then it ripples through.
Mhm. Perfect.
And honestly, one of the best parts of emotional intelligence containers is the childhood, is
Mm.
coming back to childlike wonder. And also just sitting here, like listening to you guys both speak. I think uh, the biggest breakthrough in this experience of emotional intelligence containers, like realizing the fact that life in itself is, I mean, I don't like the word terminology game, but like it is
Mm.
like, if you really look deep down inside of like what matters and what doesn't matter, like
Mm.
energetically, this is a game. Life is a game, and it's not like in a weird way like I gotta win, but like it's a game in the sense of like you can literally create anything that you want. Like call it a simulation, call it whatever you need to. It's like when you get emotional intelligence, get to that point of like, again, being like the witnesser, right? Being the outside, almost outside of your body, watching what happens. And it just creates that space, like Jeanmarie said, like you can do anything that you want, because in this game of life, you have the control over that. Like
Mm.
you want to be a singer, be a singer. You want to be a podcaster, be a podcaster. You want to be a right. You can literally, it taps you into that. It taps you into 100% possibility 100% of the time of
Mm.
like everything is possible in this lifetime. And like I'm just like reflecting on like how serious people are, like how the state of the world, and how just like how serious and tight
Mm.
people are.
Mm.
If everyone just like loosen their buttholes a little bit and like breathe some air up in there maybe once in a while, they realize that like you can be a child and you can have fun and you can create millions of dollars. You
Yes.
can be a child, you can be in flow, you can bounce around, and you can run a 10-figure business. It's not either or. It kind of, not kind of, emotional intelligence containers brings it together, right?
Yeah.
Hence like the both, you can do both and. It's not like I'm serious and a kid over here. Like you mesh them together.
Yeah.
Like the separation is what causes us issues and causes us, like, you
Mm.
mean the lives, like the easiest example is like people that work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. On the weekends, I'm a different person. Like, what kind of life is that? No
Mm.
thanks.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I've met some, wonderful folks, in the room that, their careers are just exploding, it's just, and it's wonderful that, that you can be in that place of being and joy and like you said, still be making the millions of dollars, so whatever it is that you're making, so, I had my aha moment in the pool, cleaning the vacuuming the bottom of the pool of this house that we haven't sold yet, um not very happy about having to still take care of the pool and wanting to sell the house, but I was in there cleaning the pool, and I just had this moment that, I wanted to share about a little bit. And in the pool, I got this idea that my son, Andrew, who's on here with me, and I needed to write a book.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to just share, as a dad, and this being Father's Day, and if you're a dad out there listening, this may apply to you as well. I did the best that I could with the knowledge I had at the time. I was 22 when I got married. By the time I was 28, I had 3 children. I grew up in a very dysfunctional, alcoholic, abusive home. There was a lot of love too, but that conditioning, and like we talked about, ancestral, if you could go back and look at generations of my family, it was pretty dysfunctional, and my family was crazy, and it was probably leaps and bounds better than it was in generations prior to that.
Mhm.
So it was pretty crazy. And I had a spiritual experience at 19 and thought for sure, now that I had gotten the Bible and I was going to church and, I told my wife before I was married, that I was more attracted to men than women, but we believed that that was wrong and that God was gonna fix me and, all that dysfunction. um, I thought that for sure once I had this experience that I was gonna be great and everything was gonna be fine, but it didn't turn out that way. And
Mhm.
I carried that trauma, that generational trauma. It was
Mhm.
it was who I was, into my raising of children and affected them.
Mhm.
So Andrew, who's on here, had every right to be angry at me the rest of his life, to never speak to me again with my behavior, and all my kids could have done that. For what and I certainly, if I look back at my childhood, could have
Mhm.
done the same thing. But what Andrew did instead was he looked at himself, as we've already talked about here, which, resulted in his ability to experience healing, and in turn, for me, became that Nelson Mandela,
Mhm.
and offered peace and offered forgiveness. And we are the ones who get to choose whether we see ourselves as victims
Mhm.
and just perpetuate that cycle that continues on and on and on, um, or we can choose differently and put an end to it. So Andrew and I called him and I told him I had this idea about writing a book, and he's like, "Dad, I've already had that idea. So we are going to
I
write."
told Jeanmarie actually months ago.
Yes.
Really?
She can actually vouch for this premonition because we were sitting in the back of the house and I looked at her one day, and I think this was before you started your process. And
Yes, it
I
was.
said this. I was like, I think I get to have a conversation with my dad about. I mean, it wasn't a book. It was just having the conversation
Tell
of
your
sharing
story.
our story and
Yeah.
sharing it all. And I
Mm.
mean, she was like, just wait, he's gonna go through his experience, just wait, see what happens. And then like I mean, when you call, I just it was out of sight, out of mind, and then you sent me that text message, phone call, and that's why I said, I was like, I already had this thought.
So this is where we're leaning for the book. So perhaps right now it's going to evolve, but it's an invitation to heal, which is actually the name of this podcast.
Mm.
It's a father and son's journey of awakening to forgiveness, healing, and freedom from generational trauma. And that, my friend, is a plug. So keep your eyes out open for when that book comes along. So before we wrap up, I just want to ask Jeanmarie or Andrew if you've got any final comments or things you want to share.
Andrew?
You can go.
Oh, okay. Well, one, I want to thank you, Rick, for you being who you be, spreading this love throughout the world on your podcast, stepping into this container of emotional intelligence, taking that risk and chance and saying, yes, our story gets to be heard. Like, yes, because healing gets to be throughout this world. It does. And our stories are something that we get to honor and embrace and share for others to know that we're not alone, you know, um, we're not alone in this world and that we can get through anything.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I'm looking really forward to that. It just my heart when you spoke on that, it's just everything. And I know how much it means to have your children or someone step into their being and saying, I forgive you. And let's just be a world of forgiveness.
Yes.
So like the more we all shine our lights and share our stories, the generations to come, like my nieces and nephews growing up, like they don't have to go through what we went through, right? Let's not recreate, like let's not keep recreating the same exact thing and trauma and all those and all that stuff. So I thank you. I thank you for your courage and thank you for having me here, and happy Father's Day.
And I just want to say thank you, Jeanmarie. And, you know, I'm here because of you. And
Yeah.
this podcast and what we're sharing today is because of you, you know, because of who you be and your influence and love toward Andrew and toward the world and the difference that you are making. So thank you as well.
Thank you. I'll never stop.
And I will also wrap up. Obviously, thank you for having me, Dad. Happy Father's Day, and also just a quick of just how beautiful this space is, right? And how everything is connected. The quick story about how me and Jeanmarie
Yeah.
came to be, right? So Jeanmarie and I were acquaintances. We worked with a health and wellness company. We went to one of those hoorah events. We sat next to each other. And it's so crazy. It was in that weekend, there was a task for us to like write out our stories, and like if you raised your hand and said it on a mic, like you'd be able to like go up and like get prizes, and like who is not motivated by prizes? And I was like, this is my time, because like I have always had a deep knowing of like I want to speak, I want to be on a mic, I want to share my story, and like it's all now coming to fruition. But back then, like I wrote my story out, I had it down packed, like I knew it. And Jeanmarie was sitting next to me, and I also had it on a piece of paper because I was like, just in case. It was literally like a 30-second story. And I have it on video, and like I have the mic, and I'm like shaking, I'm like trembling, and like I'm saying my story, and I'm like looking down at the paper, and Jeanmarie, you see in the camera, like hitting the paper, like stop reading it, just speak. And that was like, this was years ago, really just a monumental shift for me of like standing and like I'm going to start speaking, and like Jeanmarie was already there. This was before ALA even came into either one of our lives. And then we connected. This was when I was like going to route travel, and that's when I ended up living with you, Dad. And Jeanmarie was like, come to Florida, you can, you know, I mean, stay as long as you want. And we never really connected, so we only had a couple hours together. We ended up reconnecting a year ago now. And that's when you know, I mean, started coming to Austin for ALA, started just crashing on her kitchen room floor on an air mattress for the first couple weekends. And now like we have been living together for the past year. And now we'll be actually separating and moving out into different spaces in less than a month's time. And because of that, right, Jeanmarie was the reason I came here to ALA. And then, you know what I mean, it's the legacy that you create of transformation. So like it's just so cool to see that like two complete strangers, we didn't really know each other from day one. She was holding me high. And now to get to here where we have this container and have this information and have these tools that we know how to utilize, and we're able to create epicness and still be children and have some fun and play.
Yep.
Yes.
It's all connected. I want to just read this one thing too, that I was listening to this book on my way home from Texas, and I had to actually I marked it and came home and wrote this out because I thought it was pretty profound. And it's actually Marianne Williamson, and it's a book called The Mystic Jesus. Marianne Williamson's Jewish. And so she's looking at Jesus, not from a religious perspective, but I really love this. It says, we achieve too little because we have undisciplined minds. All of us have those areas of life where we are wounded, places in ourselves where usually because of some drama that occurred in the past, the muscles of our personality have become misshapen. We are weak where we might be stronger if we had different parents. We're harsh where we might be gentle had we not been abused. We're negative where we might be more positive had we not been betrayed or hurt. The sum of our accumulated woundings from birth until this moment takes a toll on our emotional body. We carry internal scars and bruises from the emotional wounds that have never healed. It's one thing to come to see those wounds, it's another thing to heal them. All of us are privy to the darkness of the world and carry it within ourselves. A traditional psychotherapeutic approach involves analyzing the darkness, while the actual miracle occurs when we simply turn on the light. I love that. So may we turn on the light, and let's continue to help others do the same, because when the light comes on, we clearly see that the universe is what? Rigged.
Rigged in our favor.
Danny, if you could put up how they can get in touch with Andrew, and if you get in touch with Andrew and you really want to get in touch with Jeanmarie, he can take care of that for you as well. So Andrew's Instagram account is Andrew Munroe _. So at Andrew Munroe _, you can reach out. Andrew's involved in all kinds of things, but coaching, direction, help, you can reach out to Andrew. And if you could put up and then we have the Awaken Collective, which is my webpage. And anything you need to know about us is out there as well. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much, Jeanmarie and Andrew, for being here with us today on this Father's Day. So grateful for you both and for this journey we are on. Love and kindness always to everyone out there. You are loved. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.